YouTube. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about buying versus renting a house, and obviously, it has a lot of different psychological aspects. Whether you prefer to stay in one place or move around, whether you like the stability or you're more open. But in this video, I wanna show the financial aspect of buying versus renting, and obviously, it will depend on a country, on a city. So I purposefully did not include things like taxes and important caveat. In this video, I talk about the decision of buying versus renting, about buying a house cash versus renting a home. And I know this is not the way that it's done in many Western countries, but at least that's the way that we usually go about buying houses in Europe, and I know many other places. So I saw a lot of videos that talk about mortgage rates and stuff like that. And in a lot of people, um, so for this video is for people who have the amount necessary to buy a house and don't necessarily have access to cheap capital, to good interest rates, like me, for example, and you're considering buying or renting your house. So here we go. Here are the assumptions that I based this video on. So assuming the house price is 100K, it doesn't actually matter because it only the percentages matter. So we're going to be calculating this in percentages. So it doesn't matter much, but just for simplicity, I used 100K. So the price to rent ratio, it's a pretty interesting formula. It's a pretty interesting concept of price to rent ratio. So it's actually a simple number that means the price of the home divided divided by yearly rent. So if the price to rent is 11, it's 11 in the city where I live in. It differs a lot between different cities. So for example, if you can rent a house for let's say 10K per year, which is actually, by the way, in my area, it's an actual number. So 10K times 11 will be 110K. Will be the price of the home, and obviously it will differ from apartment to apartment, from house to house, but it pretty much shows the average. So if you want to see the price to rent ratio in your city, just Google price to rent ratio, and wherever you live, New York. So yeah, and you can see, so for example, in New York, it's very different from the city where I live in. So yeah. So probably doesn't make sense to buy a place in New York unless you have access to very, very cheap capital. So again, so coming back to our calculation, so we have rent, which will be the price of the house divided by the price to rent ratio, and in our case would be 9K. This would be the number that we assume for the rent. The cost of repairs. So I wasn't sure about this, but obviously when you own a home, there are some things that get broken and stuff. So I read somewhere that 1% is a good estimate. Maybe it makes sense to change it. I don't know, but from different sources, I saw that 1% could be a good estimate. So 1% of the price of the home, or actually apartment, I'm mostly talking about apartments, it will be the equivalent to the cost of repairing it, updating, and stuff like that. Interest rate, 7%. So I was assuming a conservative portfolio of stocks and bonds, where they usually use 7% interest rate. And then the final number, which I used was the home price appreciation or depreciation. So depending on whether or not you expect the price of your home to appreciate or depreciate in your area, for my area, I have no clue. Um, Prices sometimes go up, go down. Last, I think, 7 years or 10 years, they went down, but before that, they went up. And there are also um, some facts that state that maybe they will go up again. So anyway, so I just put one, and I don't make any assumptions whether or not the price will go up or down. So I'm just assuming that it will stay the same. And now let's do the actual calculations. So option one, actually buy the apartment, and option two, rent. And let's start actually with option two. It's simpler to describe those numbers. So in this option, I'm calculating so the goal is to calculate the equity on each year and at the end of the, let's say, 15-year period. And obviously, in case of rent, the equity will be zero because you're not buying a house or an apartment, but you're saving. But assuming that you have this number 100K, you can put this number in a conservative portfolio at the start of year one and just watch it grow one plus interest rate. So it's growing 7% every year. And at the end of year 15, it's going to be 275, actually 276 almost. This will be the value of your portfolio, and the equity will be zero. So every year, if you put the um, again, if you don't, get carried away. So if you just put the 100K instead of buying a house, you see it grow, it will grow to 276 at the end of year 15. But what happens if you buy a house? So house equity, so because we used home price appreciation one, we're not expecting it to either grow or depreciate. So we're assuming it's going to stay the same. But as for the portfolio, instead of paying the rent, we can put this money into the conservative stock and bonds portfolio, and again see it grow at the 7% rate. So at the beginning, zero, and then we have this number of it's basically rent minus the cost of repairs. So because that 1% is 1K, rent is 9K, so 9 minus 1 is going to be 8K. So yeah, and every year we put this amount into a conservative portfolio and multiply it. So we multiply the previous value, in this case E10, by the interest rate, and again add another so-called saved rent, or whatever we call it. So this is how this amount is going to grow. And let's see the results. So if you're going to opt for buying a house, you're going to see at this amount of equity, almost a little more than 300,000. And if you rent a home, you're going to see this amount of rent. So, but this only works if those assumptions are correct. So if you live in an area with a very different price to rent ratio, let's say 20, you can see that the rent option is going to be a lot more viable. So in the description of the video, I'm going to add this spreadsheet. You can copy it, you can edit it, you can play around with the numbers. So hope that helps. Let me guys know if you have any questions or thoughts.